What's real and what's not in Baz Luhrmann's Elvis Presley Biopic. Part 2. (9) Were Elvis' major musical inspirations nearly all black performers, as depicted in the film? No, Luhrmann has framed this via a contemporary viewpoint. Elvis had numerous white inspirations and proclaimed in 7th grade that he wanted to sing at the Grand Ole Opry. Remember, as a boy, he attended a talent show singing Old Shep, singing about deceased dogs is about as country as it gets. Mississippi Slim, a hillbilly singer, was an early Tupelo hero. But, growing up in a colored area, he surely heard early R&B, jump blues, and swing tunes pulsing through the walls of adjacent juke joints, and he liked it, just as he did both black and white gospel. Still, the odds were stacked against his becoming a country singer, and his appearance on the Louisiana Herald seemed to send him in that direction. 10. Would Elvis have attended black Pentecostal tent meetings as a child, as shown in the movie? As a child, he could have gone to black churches with his friend Sam Bell in Tupelo. The Presleys were unconcerned about the black-white split. Later, in Memphis, he undoubtedly frequented a white conservative church, as well as the all-black East Rig Baptist Church to hear black gospel with his early love, Dixie Locke. In the film, he mentions the church. 11. He is shown attending several R&B artists' performances, whether it's Arthur Big Boy Crudup as a child or later Big Mama Thornton, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, B.B. King, and Little Richard. Is it a dream that he was continually seeing or meeting all these renowned artists? Both yes and no. This is Luhrmann demonstrating Elvis influences. Down in Tupelo, Mississippi, I used to hear old Arthur Crudup beat his box the way I do now, and I said, if I ever got to the spot where I could feel what old Arthur felt, I'd be a music guy like nobody saw, Elvis is quoted as saying. However, it is unclear whether this occurred on the radio or in person. Elvis, as a teen, most likely traveled to West Memphis, Arkansas, and Beale Street to hear black entertainers. Throughout his life, he continued to witness black entertainers such as Jackie Wilson. In the late 1950s, he also paid a visit to Little Richard's house in California. There was a surprise encounter with B.B. King at Sun Studios, and in late 1956, at a legendary all-black charity event, when King was the headliner and Elvis, as an invited guest, walked out and wiggled his leg but did not participate. He and King posed for a shot backstage. Marty Lacker informed me that Elvis Presley and B.B. King used to visit occasionally in Las Vegas back in the 1970s. There were instances when B.B. King would be playing in the lounge and Elvis would be playing in the main room, he explained. After the performances, Elvis would invite B.B. up to the suite. He liked B.B., and he liked B.B. 12. Elvis has a wide range of inspirations. Some have said that the film undersells Elvis' country and crooner inspirations, making him appear to be almost entirely the result of blues and R&B. What are your opinions about that? That is something I would agree with. But this is Luhrmann reminding us that Elvis did not take black music, as has been claimed, but rather played it in respect. I'd say it was in his spiritual DNA since he grew up with black playmates and surrounded himself with that music. Gladys, on the other hand, was a major Grand Ole Opry fan, and it was partly due to the Colonel introducing her to Hank Snow that she agreed to allow her kid travel with the Colonel. But, certainly, Elvis as a teen listened to a wide range of music, from the Ink Spots to Dean Martin. 13. What are your feelings on the portrayal of country legend Hank Snow, who initially takes Elvis out on the road before getting dissatisfied with him, and his son, Jimmy Rogers Snow, who appears to love Elvis, early in the film? Snow had a large ego and despised the fact that Elvis, not Snow, swiftly became the draw on his gigs. And his son, Jimmy, later Jimmy, desired to counsel Elvis on his sinful ways. Elvis had a thing for Jimmy. In Nashville, they went motorbike riding together. Parker used Jimmy to approach Elvis and build a friendship with him in order to get Elvis to sign with Parker and the older Snow, who were then business partners. Colonel then conned Hank out of half of Elvis, and that was the end of it. Jimmy subsequently visited Graceland in 1958 to tell Elvis about how he had stopped drinking and taking drugs on the road and had devoted his life to Jesus. Elvis wasn't ready to hear all of it just yet. 14. What is the true story behind Parker hearing about and going to see Elvis? He most likely first heard about Elvis through his pals in Texarkana, where Elvis was performing in small bars while on the Louisiana hayride. The account from Colonel's old buddy Oscar Davis, who flew to Memphis in October 1954 to arrange an Arnold engagement at Ellis Auditorium and watched how Elvis packed a local hole, the Eagle's Nest, night after night with screaming ladies, turned Colonel's head. Davis went to investigate and returned to tell Colonel Parker everything about him and how he wiggled and females went crazy. Parker got up from the lunch table, got in his car, and drove to locate him, according to Charlie Lamb, who was present that day. 15. What about Presley's military service? Parker's plan to send him away for a bit to keep the sexual energy and image in check is revealed. Oh, Parker started the whole event, but it wasn't to keep the sexual energy in check. In 1956, he began negotiations with the Pentagon. He wanted Elvis to do his time as any other soldier, not in special services, where the Army was glad to send him. This would smooth out his image and recast him as an all-American youngster appropriate for family entertainment with Frank Sinatra. Everything was done to turn him into a cherished pop star rather than a dangerous, lugubrious rock and roller. Parker wanted Elvis to look clean-cut once he returned from the service, in part because neither Elvis nor Parker felt rock and roll would continue. Elvis, in particular, felt everything may be over by the time he got out. So, while he was gone, remember, Parker never went to Germany when Elvis was there. Parker put up all these appearances in movies for him, with the goal of making him appeal to families, the all-American youngster who could develop into that role as he aged. But once Elvis was on stage and in command of the music, he did anything he pleased. It's similar to Priscilla allowing Baz to portray Parker as a villain, but now having Hanks and Baz explain they toned down the Colonel's evilness once they met with her, because Parker was a wonderful person. They want it both ways. 16. Is the portrayal of Parker's 1968 return special realistic, with Parker desperately attempting to keep it a Christmas special and fighting the rock and roll throwback aspects that everyone liked because he was kowtowing to a furious TV network? Both yes and no. It was intended to be a Christmas program in the sense that it would air in December, and Parker envisioned Elvis as a 1960s-era Bing Crosby or Perry Como. However, there was no Christmas sweater or fairy tale Christmas set. Luhrmann is the showman here. Parker was irritated because there was no Christmas music at first, but TV producer Steve Binder and Elvis tossed him a bone with Blue Christmas. 17. Is the description of Elvis' connection with Priscilla, however fleeting, essentially accurate? It has been sanitized as well as extended. Elvis and Priscilla had little common experience after the divorce except from organizing Lisa Marie's visits. 18. Did Elvis ever fire Parker on stage, followed by Parker retaliating by threatening to demand payback for every minor expenditure item incurred over the years? He never dismissed him on live, but in Vegas in 1974, Elvis attacked Baron Hilton from the stage for terminating one of Elvis' favorite staff. That resulted in a massive yelling confrontation with Parker and discussion of firing and leaving on both sides, with Colonel eventually presenting a bill that the Presleys couldn't pay. So everything went back to normal. Elvis would never have been so obnoxious as to evict Colonel off the stage. 19. Did Parker indeed do everything in his power to prevent Elvis from fulfilling his dream of traveling internationally? Yes. Parker couldn't attend since he didn't have a passport and didn't trust any other promoter to take him. He cited many reasons, notably security and a lack of large enough venues, or stated that the money was insufficient. Parker is reported to have discussed this with two promoters at the end of his life, because Elvis was so disappointed that he would never be able to tour Europe. 20. Did Parker actually appoint Elvis' father, Vernon, as business manager to ensure that the Colonel could truly handle everything? Approximately. Vernon needed to do something, and he was always eager to take money under the table, and Parker recognized how flexible he was and would have proposed Vernon be the so-called company manager. Parker privately called Elvis family crap and rubbed his thumb and fingers together. 21. Did Parker use carnival, carny, or con man terminology as often as he did in this film? He did, indeed. For example, while talking about how he never wanted to be taken advantage of, he'd add, "I don't want to wind up with cider in my ear." And he had an assistant set up a cookhouse, a so-called carnival kitchen, by draping an oilcloth over the conference room table in his MGM lot office. One thing he said to me was, "I want you to remember this." Then he went into this carny doublespeak that sounded like pig Latin. Naturally, I had no idea what he was saying, let alone recalled it. He never truly left the carnivals. 22. Is there anything further to say about Parker's portrayal? The Colonel is a complex guy, and while he usually stole too much of Presley's money, he made some wise judgments for him. By any measure, Luhrmann has not given him his due. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more updates.